Right, folks, it's now 17 minutes past 7 p.m. on the 30th of the 5th, 2020. Well, it's Choo-Choo's birthday today. He's 6 years old. That's cool. He's had the lovely little birthday breakfast where I fed him Crunchy Nut cornflakes he got fed. So I have some in a bowl. Sometimes he gets fed them, so it was only him getting fed them today. And then we've had some birthday cake, some Victoria sponge. I bought 2. So we divide them into 3s so that all 6 of us can have some birthday cake. We do it every time one of us has a birthday, so that's nice. And he will have a mackerel for his bedtime food. That would be his birthday treat. He's had lots of love today and lots of cuddles and kisses and strokies. That dog you can hear upstairs is one of the puppies from here. Obviously, they've gone out and left the dog in there. They always do it, and dog howls. Anyway, to the point of this video. There's been all the stupidity, as there always is, with the death of that young man. Coming out, people claiming that it's racism, pure racism. And it's all because that man was black and the police officer was white. No. I'll put a link to this one for the other 2 videos I've done on the police and why things are as they are, because it's not a case where they are anti-black. They haven't just devalued people that are brown, they devalued people that are poor. Generally speaking, how many times do the police harass or kill rich black men? Or women? Rich brown people. How many times does it happen where the police kill the rich ones, the powerful ones? How many times do they abuse them? Oh, they may try to. Of course they may try to. The same as a white man who's from the streets, who's from a working background, not rich and powerful, not the elite, who's suddenly doing okay for himself, driving around in an expensive car, will often get pulled over by the police because the police think, how on earth does he own that car? Right? They see the person driving past, it looks normal. Or they see him get into his car and they think, how on earth is he? He must have stolen it. How could he afford that car? They do it to white people or to pink people as well as they do it to brown people. It's just not as often. And also, it's not reported. As I said in previous videos, it isn't reported. But it's all about devaluing people. As I've said in the previous video, when you have a system where the police are the law, and you're not innocent till proven guilty, but you're guilty till you prove yourself innocent. Look at every person who gets taken by the police. The police can hold you overnight, at least overnight, if not longer, with no evidence against you. Now, that's kidnapping. But it's fine because the police are the law, they can do that, right? Because you're assumed as guilty. Somebody said something against you, right? You have to prove you're innocent. They don't really, or at least initially, because they try and make sure that you don't have a lawyer, because they make it quite clear to you, or they suggest you, put it this way, they always suggest, if you talk to us, you can be out here in 5 minutes. We just want to find out what happened, that's all. Yeah, you talk to us, you'll be out in 5 minutes. If you want a lawyer, that's fine. Busy time of day, though, you could be here 5 hours waiting for a lawyer. And of course, what are most people going to do if they're innocent? They're going to go for that no lawyer, right? Of course, if you have no lawyer, you have to prove you're innocent. Because they're assuming you're guilty. They're trying to trip you up. Oh, and they are trying to trip you up. That's the point. If they are truly concerned about justice, truly concerned about getting the right person and not putting guilty people behind bars, they would make sure, without a doubt, that you had a lawyer, that you had someone on your side. Also, the system would make sure that the lawyers had finances enough to have detectives work for them, the same as the prosecution has a whole detective force working for them. The whole system is set up in a way where you have to prove you're innocent. Even in court, you have to prove you're innocent, because most people now aren't convicted on absolute proof that they're guilty. It's where the prosecution have been a bit more clever than the defence have been. Yeah, the prosecution, as I say, they've got these experts who are the police, who they can pull up. And the problem is, a lot of people have this assumption that, the police would never lie. Yeah, that most police officers are good, so therefore the one sitting in this court who's saying that they're going to be truthful won't lie to us. So when that police officer says such and such and such and such happened, they're going to be believed, right? That's what the prosecution have on their side. Defence doesn't have the same. Therefore, it's out of balance. The system that says you're innocent until you prove guilty is also wrong, because the way the system is set up now, as I said earlier, is that you're guilty before you prove you're innocent. That's why they can hold you on remand while you're on trial. That's why they can hold you on bail. In America it's bail. In the UK and other countries, they have different wording for it. One is remand. But you can be held in custody, sort of in prison, for that duration of your court. If you are assumed innocent until you're proven guilty, how can they imprison you? Well, they can't. As I say, that's all part of devaluing the person, is that you are guilty. As far as the police are concerned, every single person they see is guilty. They just don't know what of. So when they look at someone who is not rich, not powerful, they assume you're guilty. They just don't know what of yet. So, for example, if you're walking down the streets and a police officer is walking towards you, and you go to put your hand in your pocket, as far as that police officer is concerned, you've got a gun, you're a murderer, you're going to shoot them. That's their defence when they kill you, because that's why they say, I was afraid. Of what? See, the problem is they never asked, what were you afraid of? Oh, this person had a gun. And where's your evidence of that? Yeah, this person was going to shoot me. Well, where's your evidence of that? Do you know this person? Do you know this person hates you? You know this person wants to kill you? If not, where is your evidence to say you are afraid? Based on what? But they never asked that because of the fact it's a prejudice, but it's a prejudice against everybody. Everybody who's poor. Generally speaking, bad cops assume that people want to hurt them. Good cops don't assume that, because good cops are decent to people. They abide by the law they are supposed to serve. They abide by that law. They don't cheat people, they don't con people. They don't try and put innocent people behind bars. Now, they don't believe that people want to hurt them. Why would they? They're a good cop. The fact they're a good cop gets spread around. With bad cops, it's the opposite. The fact they're a bad cop gets spread around. So they assume that people might want to hurt them. Why? Because they're bad. Because they do the bad stuff. Because they don't stick by the law that they are supposed to serve. They serve themselves. They don't serve the law. You need to understand that if you're going to talk about this situation with regards to this officer kneeling on someone's head, that person had been devalued by the police officer. not because of their colour. Nothing to do with the person's colour in any way, shape or form. It was to do with the person's standing within society. That person was below the police officer. Most people are below the police officer because they see themselves as worth more than you. You're worth less. Now get that point. Worth less. You say it slowly, worth less than them, or you say it quickly, you're worthless. In their eyes, you're worthless. That's how they're able to do the things they do. That's how they're able to lock you up for overnight or whatever with no evidence against you because you're worthless. If they saw that you had any worth at all, they couldn't do that. But they do it to brown, they do it to pink. Only if you're poor. Only if you are not rich and powerful. The rich and powerful, you might get a stupid officer occasionally trying with them. But generally speaking, you have to be a bloody stupid officer to do that. And most of them aren't that stupid. They generally know who are the rich and powerful people around their area. And they avoid prosecuting those people. They avoid going anywhere near them because they see those people as above them. They are worth more than they are. That's why if a rich and powerful person gets killed, you have the police from all over the area coming out. If a police officer gets killed, you have the police from all areas coming out. If a poorer person gets killed, you might get 1 or 2 officers on your case. If you're lucky, you'll probably get 1 officer working on 10 or 20 cases. The chances that yours will be solved is very, very slim. Because you don't matter. You didn't matter when you were alive, you don't matter when you're dead. And as I say, that is not based on skin. It's based on your societal worth. And that's got nothing to do with skin colour. Because there are rich and powerful people that are brown. There are more rich and powerful people that are white. But then again, that's going to be the case, really. That is going to be the case because the European nations are the ones that ruled the world. The African nations didn't. Right? They were still doing the tribal stuff when Europe was, getting industrialized and all that stuff. So, sorry, folks. Your brown people from the past weren't interested in that stuff, whereas the white people were. That's why they still dominate. Because, things haven't caught up yet. You can't force it to happen. And to be honest, those people that are counted as the more powerful people, they don't have great lives themselves. They can still be miserable little gits. It's just they don't get harassed by the police. Simple. But as the world population increases, you're going to have that situation where a percentage of people is going to be considered as worthless. The way the world saw it, India, certainly in the Indian slums, were counted that those people were worth less. Africa was counted as worth less. So there's always been a case where nations viewed other nations as worth less than they were. But you have the situation within most societies where the police view a massive proportion of their popularity as worth less than they are. So as I say, you only have to look that when a civilian who is a lowly civilian gets killed, what happens? When a rich person, powerful person gets killed, what happens? When a police officer gets killed, what happens? Now look at that in your area and you'll see who is worth more, who is worth less. That's how they show it. What importance do they show to solving a situation if it happens to a poor person, a police officer, or a rich person? Rich, powerful person. poor pink people get the same crappy treatment as poor black people. It's not televised. No one's really interested in it because it's white against white. Or it might be a black officer versus a white person. It doesn't matter. No one cares. I care. I'd rather that didn't happen to anyone. But the media don't care. That's not a story. See, what the media wanted, CNN, other news networks, they wanted this. They wanted people rioting in the streets. Why? Because they're 24-hour news. Because they're 24-hour news, then what they want is for everything to go and explode, because now they've got plenty of stuff to talk about over the next 24 hours. So they want something that is a possible powder keg to explode. And they feed it. They blow on the flames to make the flames burn hotter and higher. They're not going to do that with a white person being killed, because there's not the same outrage. Even a black person poor killing a white person poor, or a white person poor killing a black person poor, you don't see that. It happens all the flipping time, but you don't see it on the news. Why? Because it's not one level against another level. You know, it's not the people that are supposed to serve the community killing the community, or killing those in the community. It's racism. Oh, it's just because that person's skin colour. No, it isn't. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with the skin colour. Not at all. Yeah, there's this activist, Killer Mike, who did this big speech on it. And again, he pointed out it's because this person, the unfortunate person who died, was black. Yeah, no, sorry. Got nothing to do with it. And loads of people are doing the same on Twitter. They're all highlighting it's because the person was black. No, it isn't. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Come on, folks. Use your brains. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with colour. Like this lady here you've got an image of mainly so-called white people standing in front of mainly so-called black people, brown people. You know, as a protective barrier between the police and these protesters. If she's put it, whites forming a barrier between black protesters and police. Yeah. Again, racist. You're making it about race. It's not race. Someone else, Rome Malone 2 has put, it's not white versus black, it's everyone versus racist. No, it isn't, because it's not a racist thing. Unless you understand that it's far bigger and far worse than a racist thing. If it's just purely a racist thing, then poor white people would have a fantastic life. But poor white people don't have a fantastic life. They have a life where they're harassed by the authorities, they're killed by the authorities, they have massive things going on in their life that are terrible. You know, it's due to your standing in society. It's you're worth less than they are. And because you're worth less than they are, they can treat you in that way. They can abuse you. It just looks worse because of the previous issue of slavery. And that would be like an Italian abusing someone from any other part of Europe. Oh, you're Roman. You enslaved us. Because they did. The Romans enslaved most of Europe. They killed or enslaved people. I mean, they were far worse at what they did than the people that did what they did to the Africans, because it was a far wider area. They even went into Africa and enslaved those people. But they did everywhere they could get their little greedy hands onto. They enslaved every person that they saw. white, brown didn't matter, or pink and brown didn't matter. So yeah, and it was a case that in that time of African slavery, it was the African people selling slaves to European people. Yeah, they were tricking African people to come to the village for work or whatever, and then they would just enslave them and sell them on. But let's forget about that factor. Let's forget about the fact that you had brown people making a lot of money from slavery in Africa. But that doesn't matter. Let's focus on the whites or pinky skin people doing it, and let's focus it all on them. The problem is you're perverting history in doing that. You have to understand that the rich and powerful have always subjugated the poor. Always. They've always abused them. They've always done whatever they wanted with them. And that's what is going on now. Still the same old crap. Yeah, there are levels. It used to be a case with the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, but the problem is the police are in between that. Yeah, they see themselves as the law. So they're slap bang in the middle. They serve the bourgeoisie, and really their enemy is the proletariat, the poor. Because generally speaking, the rich, the way the police see it, the rich aren't going to do petty crimes against the poor. Whereas the poor are going to do petty crimes against the rich. The poor are more likely to try and hurt the rich because they're jealous of them, rather than the rich hurting the poor. But unless you understand what it is, you're not going to deal with it. The police need to understand that they are not the law. They individually are human beings who make mistakes. They are not the law. Not in any way, shape, or form. They are supposed to serve the community. They're supposed to serve the law. They're not supposed to serve themselves or serve the government. They're supposed to serve the people. That's supposed to be their job. Well, they're finding it miserable to do that because, as I say, they've elevated themselves into a position where they're not supposed to be in. Or actually, to be honest, when they were first created, the police force, you're looking, certainly in the UK, it would have been Robert Peel. I believe Robert Peel, was it? Who started off the first police force? And again, it was really as a way of protecting the rich from the poor. It always has pretty much been that. Yeah, the same as in the army, really, for years, it was always a case of you use your army to protect the rich against the poor. Yeah, I mean, look at the situation in the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. All those years, it was always the case. I mean, you go back to like the 1600s, they had practices in place that if a young woman got married, the landowner had first rights to lay with that woman. I mean, that's disgusting. But because he was a landowner, because he owned everything, it was counted that really she was his. Yeah, and it would be counted as, if he chose to take that up, she would be honoured. She should be honoured at that he wants to stick his penis inside of her. Even if he's like, I mean, in those days, didn't live that old. If he was like in his 40s and she was like, 16, this dirty old man, it didn't matter because he was rich and he was powerful. Because he was rich and powerful, then that was one of the traditions that was happening there. For example, if you had a fight between a rich person and a poor person and a rich and powerful person, The rich and powerful person would never be the one going to prison. Never. Never happened. It's never happened, folks. It's always been rich versus poor. It's always been rich versus poor. And the police have put themselves in the middle of the two. Said they were designed to be in the middle of the two, but then they sort of come away from it because we had community policing, and certainly the way people talk about the UK in the 50s and 60s, your local police officer was part of the community. Everybody loved them, because they were lovely people. They sort of served the community. If your kids were being out of order, a police officer would give them a clip around the ear hole and tell them they're going to speak to their parents if they continue doing that. That was all part of it. Now, no. Now it's gone bad. And that's partly because of the fact that the numbers of police officers have been cut. And there's a whole new lot of laws that 9/11 gave them. These terrorism laws. And the problem is they've used those to subjugate and abuse the poor even more than they were doing before. But as I say, recognise it for what it is. It's nothing to do with skin colour. And the sooner people realise that, the sooner they might have a chance to actually do something about it. You take care. God bless, and I will speak to you soon. So I'm speaking about something because, again, people are going on about it being racist. It's not racist. It isn't racist. Look back through history. It's got nothing to do with racism. It was happening to white people. It still happens to white people. In other countries where there's hardly any black people or brown people, it still happens to the pinkish people. They get it all. It's not about colour of skin. The networks are about colour of skin. They are the ones that are racist in favour of brown people, or in brown cases. They think that the white versus white, or pink versus pink, or black versus pink is worthless with regards to their time. They don't think it's going to get as much coverage, so therefore they focus on the stuff that produces the most likes. That when they talk about something, what do people want to see? What do they want to talk about? That. Because then you get everyone who's got a bit of brown in their skin coming out, screaming about racism, even people from thousands of miles from where it happened. It's got nothing to do with them whatsoever, but they're quickly on places like Twitter saying, this is disgusting, we've got to do something about it, it's racism. Of course, they look in the mirror, they see someone who's brown, and they think that it's about them. It's not about them. Anyway, you take care, God bless, and I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.